Hi, I'm Stuart Holmes, and I'm the organist and choir director at Old Paramus. As you may have heard, if you listened to any of our thoughts on Thursday, Rob Miller is away, and while he's away, I'm going to take over the Thoughts on Thursday. Oh, what a chance. Thoughts on Thursday for the next few weeks to talk about the pipe organ. So we're going to call this series Thoughts on Thursday, the King of Instruments. I welcome you to join us on each of these days. This instrument is very complex, but a lot of people don't know how this instrument is built, what makes it work, and I hope that I'm going to be able to shed some light on that. We're going to have a 5-part series on the next, over the next 5 Thursdays. The first one will talk tonight, what I'm doing now, we'll talk about the history of the pipe organ and a little bit about this pipe organ. The second will be looking at the physical aspect. The pipes will walk up into a pipe chamber. The third, we'll be talking about the console here and how this controls everything. The fourth and the fifth sessions will be focused on individual sections of this instrument. So I hope that you will join us on those subsequent videos. The origins of the pipe organ go way back to ancient Greece. In the 2nd century, there is evidence that they had little flutes on a board that had a supply of wind. That was very simple. You fast track up to the 12th century, and by that time it became a slightly more complex. They may have added another row of pipes, so you would have 2 rows of pipes. There certainly weren't a lot of pipes. We have 61 notes here. There were probably a couple octaves in most cases. Then we jump ahead again into the 1700s, into the Baroque period, and we find that many different countries had a different approach to the pipe organ. In the Netherlands, they had already developed 3 keyboards. In Germany, each keyboard had its own individual sounds, and they were created to play polyphonic music, music that has individual voices rather than a hymn. A hymn is not polyphonic. Those instruments had lots of different colors on them, in them. Of course, Bach was the most famous composer for the organ back in those days and had a lot of influence on how the organ was built. We jump to France, Spain, and Portugal, and what made them unique is all 3 of those countries kind of said, this is the way the organ should be. And the number of rows of pipes in the organ, the way the console was laid out, everything became kind of, this is the standard. We hadn't seen that prior to, certainly in a great amount, prior to those, that century. In England, many instruments had been removed or destroyed in the Reformation period, and when they came back, the instrument kind of took a life of its own. They became a little bit more romantic. They had a lot of unison sound and very heavy reeds that kind of filled those great cathedrals. We find that enclosed divisions became popular so that you could make a sound and close it within a box and create a diminuendo or a crescendo. We come into the 19th century, and of course electricity came into being, whereas before, for example, Bach would have paid pump boys to go behind the organ and stand on the bellows and walk. It's like a stair tread that you would have at the gym, and they would walk pumping air. And every once in a while, if they got lazy and they slowed down the pumping, there are lots of stories that say that somebody would go back and slap them or say, "Come on, wake up, let's go. We need more air. We need more air." There was even a little dial on the console that said how much air was going through the instrument and how much air was being produced. So we had electricity come into it, and all of a sudden we had pipe connections that were away from the console. The console didn't have to be a direct link, physical link between console and the pipes. Now today, most of the instruments that we have are electric. What I play here is sent through an electrical pulse into the pipe chambers, so I can put this console anywhere. The other form with the direct link is called a tracker instrument, and those are very popular because they're more expressive. The organ is not expressive by itself. You play a note, and you can't play it louder or softer. It's very difficult to keep phrasing so that the listener understands that this is a breathing instrument. In the mid-20th century, organs became common in theaters. It was cheaper to pay an organist than it was to hire an orchestra. So organ transcriptions of great works came into being. We find that many of the people would flock to churches to watch a movie and hear a theater organist play the theater organ before or during especially during the talkies. And that developed, interestingly enough, that's coming back. We're seeing a lot of the old talkies or silent movies, not talkies, silent movies come back. And so that kind of developed its own flavor. And then and just after the Depression and everything, the organ kind of became muddled. They put pipes in boxes, those great carved, what am I looking for? Display cases for the pipe organs in Europe went out of fashion, and they buried the organ. You didn't want to see the pipes. Get to the mid-1900s, and that started to come back. There was a reform movement that said, bring back what Germany was famous for example, and let's have these famous organs that were built in Germany with their beautiful facades, and let's have the sounds that came from there. And all of a sudden, the romantic instrument kind of went bye-bye. When I was in school in the 70s, it wasn't very popular to play romantic music. And now, turn forward another few decades, and all of a sudden we find that the romantic music is making a comeback. The symphonic organ was diminished during the mid-1900s and now is coming back again. We're seeing it in concert halls. One of the bones of contention for organists is that these great concert halls in Cleveland, Chicago, Los Angeles, Dallas, Philadelphia, all those cities have great philharmonic halls, halls for these large orchestras with pipe organs in them. Fairly new pipe organs in most cases. New York doesn't. Very sad. Philharmonic Hall is being rebuilt, and there's a great big push by my colleagues to try to convince the leaders that they need to design space for a pipe organ. And maybe in a few years we'll see that come about. Who knows? So that's a look at I didn't mention electronic organs came into being. Now we have digital organs and digital voices. We're going to be talking more about this instrument. There are 2,000 pipes here and some digital voices because we just don't have the room, which we will talk about in future scenes. Just a brief history about Old Paramus. The first organ was in 1892. It was a very small instrument. I will take you and show you about where that instrument was.